Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through your sources, find the key stuff, and hopefully make it quick and interesting for you to get up to speed.
That's the plan.
Today, we're jumping into the materials you sent on reactance, experiential learning, and brain feedback.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
Our goal here is figure out, why doing things, getting that feedback helps us learn so much better than just, listening.
Exactly. And your sources talk quite a bit about this concept, learnography,
Learnography, right?
which really seems to be about active learning, how our brains are kind of wired for that interaction and response. It's almost like tapping into the brain's natural way of figuring things out.
And it connects things you wouldn't normally think of, like pottery and studying for an exam. It all comes down to this law of reactance.
That's the core idea we need to unpack.
So let's dig into that. This law and how it basically flips the script on how we think about learning effectively.
Okay, let's start with the basics. Experiential learning. Your sources are clear. It's learning through, experience, practice, getting feedback.
Right, not just sitting there passively.
Exactly. It's a difference between, say, reading about swimming and actually getting in the water. One's abstract, the other.
Yeah.
You feel it. You react.
And that reaction, that's where this law of reactance comes in.
Pretty much. It's simply the resistance or the feedback you encounter when you try to do something. Interact with an object, a task.
The sources use that pottery analogy, which I thought was great, shaping clay on a wheel.
Yes. Because the clay isn't just passive,
Right.
it pushes back. It has its own properties.
Mm-hmm.
And that pushback, that resistance, it forces you to adjust your pressure, your speed. You develop a feel for it.
You learn from the interaction itself.
Precisely. That dialogue between you and the clay, that's the learning engine.
And the sources connect this physical thing directly to, academic learning.
They do. They argue that when you're actively working on something, maybe writing, solving a math problem, even just sketching your interaction with the material generates its own kind of force. A mental friction, maybe?
Okay. And that generates responses, feedback.
Yeah, and this is where learnography comes back in as a sort of model for this.
Right. You mentioned that.
Your sources describe it as brain-based. It tries to structure this natural cycle of action and response. They mention these terms: brain page, source page, side page.
We'll need to break those down later.
We will. But the main point for now is that learnography sees our brains as fundamentally designed to learn this way through doing and getting feedback.
Okay, that makes sense. And the sources give some really concrete examples of this, don't they, beyond the pottery?
Oh, yeah. Really good ones that show reactance in action. Back to pottery for a sec. They stress it's not just seeing the pot take shape.
It's a feel of it.
Exactly. The tactile and motor feedback, as they call it.
Okay.
You feel the clay's consistency, the wetness, the resistance. Your hands learn. It's muscle memory, touch memory.
Learning through multiple senses, not just sight.
Right. Then there's riding a bike. Classic example.
You definitely don't learn that from a textbook.
No way. You learn from the wobble, right?
Yeah.
From almost falling, correcting your balance.
Yeah.
The bike's reaction is the lesson.
That immediate feedback loop. Wobble, adjust, wobble less.
Yeah. The fall, the adaptation, that's pure experiential learning. The bike is constantly giving you feedback based on your actions.
And it works with living things, too, like horse riding.
Absolutely. The sources bring this up. You're interacting with an animal that responds to your touch, your voice, your balance, even your nervousness, probably.
There's a much more complex feedback system.
Very dynamic. You're interpreting and reacting to a living creature's responses in real time. It's rich feedback.
And wave surfing. Talk about dynamic feedback.
Yeah. The ocean definitely tells you when you've messed up.
Instantly.
That wave's response to your board position, your timing, it's immediate, powerful feedback. Adapt or get tumbled.
So, pottery, biking, horses, surfing.
Yeah.
What's the common thread here, according to the sources?
It's those real-time feedback loops. They call them unfiltered, dynamic, and personalized.
Unfiltered, I like that. Direct cause and effect.
Exactly. It's learning stripped down to its core, action and consequence.
Okay, so we see reactance working in these hands-on scenarios. How does this actually build knowledge inside our heads? This is where that brain page idea fits in.
That's right. Learnography uses brain page to describe the actual neural structure, the memory architecture that gets built up through experience and motor activity.
So it's like the physical record of what we've learned through doing.
Kind of, yeah. Knowledge that's physically encoded, not just abstractly held.
So walk me through that learnography cycle again. How does reactance actually build this brain page?
Okay. So it starts with the learner interacting with the source page. That's the information source, a book, a diagram, whatever.
Got it.
Then, crucially, the learner initiates a task, writing notes, drawing something, trying to solve a related problem. You have to do something.
Active engagement. Step 1.
Step 1. Then, the law of reactance comes into play. The task objected, the pen, the paper, the model, the problem itself, it provides feedback, resistance,
Huh.
a response to your effort.
Okay, the pushback.
That pushback, that response, is what actually helps form the neural connections. It's building the brain page. Your brain is literally mapping the interaction.
Mapping the dialogue between action and response.
You could put it that way. And then there's the side page.
Right, the third piece. What does that do?
The sources say the side page, which seems to be the outcome or the recorded result of your task, sends a new response back to the brain page.
Completing the loop.
Exactly. It validates or corrects the connections being formed.
Yeah.
Your brain is essentially checking its understanding based on the outcome of your action. It refines the brain page.
So it's this constant back and forth, act, get feedback, brain adjusts, check the outcome, brain adjusts again. That's the neurological mechanism.
That seems to be the core of the learnography model, yes. And specific brain areas are key players.
Which one?
Well, the thalamus is highlighted. It acts like a relay station or switchboard for all that sensory and motor information.
Yeah, right through the traffic.
Pretty much. Then the cerebellum, which is crucial for coordination, motor learning. Think about balancing that bike. It fine-tunes the motor responses.
Oh, right.
And the motor cortex, naturally, is involved in initiating the actions in the first place. These parts work together, processing the reactance and storing the learning as procedural memory.
Procedural memory, the how-to stuff, like riding the bike or playing that guitar chord.
Exactly. It becomes ingrained through practice and feedback.
Now, this makes perfect sense for physical skills. But the sources argue this applies to all learning, right? And that's where traditional methods might miss the mark.
That's a key point they make. Traditional classrooms, often focused on passive listening or reading abstract stuff, can unintentionally suppress reactance.
Suppress reactance, meaning?
Meaning there's less opportunity for that active doing and immediate feedback. If you're just listening to a lecture, where's the pushback? Where's the material reacting to your specific attempt to understand or apply it?
Right, the feedback loop is weak, or maybe non-existent sometimes.
Exactly. And the consequence, according to the sources, is that the knowledge you gain might be, well, fragile, easily forgotten.
Because it hasn't been built through that active, feedback-driven process.
Precisely. It hasn't been integrated into your brain page through action and response.
Yeah.
It feels disconnected from practical use.
Whereas this other approach, the task-based, reactance-driven learning, it encourages different outcomes.
Very different. The sources argue it builds autonomy. You're driving your learning. Engagement goes way up because you're actively involved.
Not just a passenger.
Right. And it leads to, ultimately, better mastery because you're exercising both the thinking parts and the doing parts of your brain, cognitive and motor circuits working together.
And they mentioned some real-world educational examples, Taxila model schools and happiness classrooms.
Yeah, presented as examples trying to implement this. Places that prioritize active tasks, projects, creation, where students get that immediate feedback from what they're working on. A shift from just listening to actively constructing knowledge.
Okay, this is starting to form a clear picture. Let's try and nail down the key findings from the research presented in your sources. They listed 8 points about the neuroscience here.
Right. Let's run through them. Finding one. Reactance isn't secondary. It's the trigger. It kicks off the essential neural processes for learning to even begin. Action response starts the engine.
You need that initial pushback. Got it.
Second, the thalamus is central. It's that neural switchboard, managing the flow of sensory motor feedback, letting us adjust on the fly, like the potter feeling the clay.
Okay, the traffic controller.
Third, those repeated cycles, act, react, adjust, are what really build the brain page modules. It makes the learning stick much better than passive intake.
Practice makes permanent, but it's the feedback during practice that counts.
Well put. Fourth finding, the physical act itself matters. Using our hands, coordinating movement, proprioception, our sense of body position, all this strengthens long-term memory through those motor and cerebellar pathways. Body and mind learning together.
It's not just in your head.
Definitely not. Fifth, that real-time personalized feedback is gold. It tailors the learning just for you, which boosts motivation, autonomy, and leads to real mastery. You learn directly from your specific interaction.
Makes sense. What about Zeitpage again? How does that fit into the findings?
Finding 6 explains its role in validation. The Zide page, the outcome of your task, lets your brain check its work. It compares the new input against the existing brain page, integrating or correcting based on the feedback.
So it confirms the learning loop worked.
Essentially, yes. Finding 7 moves to application. This whole model supports task-based classrooms. Using the law of reactance leads to better engagement and less cognitive overload because learning is active and focused, not just passive absorption.
More doing, less just. Memorizing without context.
Exactly. And the final point, number 8, kind of ties it all together.
Which is?
That experiential learning, this whole action-response cycle, isn't just a teaching philosophy. It's neurophysiologically grounded. It's how our brains are actually built to learn, validating learnography as aligned with neuroscience.
Wow. Okay, so it's deeply wired. And they bring back the potter one last time.
Yeah, just to emphasize how even tiny adjustments based on the clay's feedback guide the whole process, reinforcing the memory trace, building that brain page. It's constant, subtle dialogue.
That continuous loop, driven by reactance, activating the brain, making learning stick.
That's the core message.
So wrapping this up, the big idea is the incredible power of learning through doing, where action meets feedback. That interaction creates real understanding.
Couldn't say it better. And the sources end with a strong call to action, really.
Which is?
To embrace task-based learning. Harness reactance.
Yeah.
Build your brain page through actual experience. Make learning a dialogue with the material. And potentially transform education using these learnography principles.
Right. So a final thought for you, the listener. How can you build more reactance into your own learning? Where can you shift from passive consumption to active engagement? Think about creating those feedback loops, even small ones. Pay attention to the responses you get from a problem, a tool, even a challenging idea, and notice how that shapes your understanding, making it deeper and more permanent. Like that potter feeling the clay respond.